The millionaire pretended to be unconscious after the fall. What the nanny did left him in tears. Ethan Cole staggered as he made his way down the walnut spiral staircase of his Beverly Hills mansion. The headache from his violent argument with Olivia, his ex-wife, still throbbed like an aftershock that refused to fade. He clenched his phone so tightly that his knuckles turned white, her cold, threatening voice echoing relentlessly in his mind. "You'll pay more. If not, I'll take both of the children back to New York." The words pierced his chest like a knife. Ethan could barely see the steps beneath his feet anymore. Only when his foot slipped off the edge of the stair did he realize the disaster had struck. There was no time to react. His heavy body pitched forward. The phone flew from his hand, spinning wildly through the air. The luxurious house seemed to tilt. His back slammed against the icy marble floor, his head striking the edge of the step with a sharp, horrifying crack. A jolt of pain shot through his left shoulder. His breath caught painfully in his throat. For a few seconds, everything blurred. The light from the massive glass windows ahead smeared into pale white streaks. Ethan tried to move. His fingers responded. His legs still had strength. Nothing was broken, just a hard fall. A very hard fall. And in that exact moment, amid the dull ache spreading along his spine, Ethan Cole, the tech billionaire, the man who always controlled everything, was seized by a twisted thought so warped that even he did not understand why it occurred to him. He closed his eyes, let all his muscles go slack, let his body lie motionless on the cold stone floor like a lifeless weight just thrown down, alone, forgotten, insignificant. To see, when he was no longer here, who would truly panic, who would merely fulfill their duty, who would be terrified of losing their job, and who would cry because they had lost him. The sound of wind from the ocean rushed in through the large glass windows, blending with the distant crash of waves. The vast mansion suddenly felt strangely hollow and empty. Then, from upstairs, the cry of children tore through the silence. Two cries overlapped, sharp, trembling. Lily and Liam. Ethan heard them clearly. And he also heard the hurried footsteps of an adult running across the wooden floor, the boards creaking with every step. Hannah had definitely heard him fall. Olivia had taken nearly the entire team of night nannies with her in the custody battle. Hannah was the only one left in this enormous house. Ethan slowed his breathing, deep and steady, as if he were truly unconscious. "Mr. Cole?" Her voice broke through in ragged, panicked breaths. Ethan did not open his eyes, but he felt her collapse beside him. The marble floor beneath his head trembled slightly as she dropped to her knees. The faint scent of baby milk, soft powder, and a trace of cheap soap lingering on her sleeves drifted into the air. Lily screamed in Hannah's left arm. Liam wailed in her right. The two tiny bodies writhed, clinging to her as if she were their only lifeline in a raging storm. "Oh my God, Mr. Cole, can you hear me?" Hannah's hand touched his cheek, cold, trembling. Or perhaps it was his own skin burning from the fury of the argument he had just had with Olivia, his ex-wife, who had been screaming through the phone demanding more money, more time, more conditions, using the children themselves as bargaining chips. "Lily, sweetheart. Shh. Liam, baby, calm down. Let Hannah check on Daddy for a second, okay?" Her voice struggled to stay steady, but the tremor in it betrayed her. Her fingers slid down to his neck, pressing against his pulse. Ethan felt clearly how icy her fingertips were against his skin, those fingers still bearing faint calluses, the marks of manual labor from before she ever entered this luxurious house. "His heart is still beating," she whispered almost to herself. "Thank God. It's still beating." Lily screamed louder, her face flushed red, tiny hands flailing in the air. Liam cried so hard his sobs broke into choking hiccups. Hannah tried to pull them tighter against her chest, her shoulders shaking with every cry. "I have to call 911. Hannah has to call for an ambulance." She darted her eyes around. Ethan's phone lay several meters away. To reach it, she would have to put the children down. But she couldn't. She couldn't place them on the cold floor while the man in front of her might be in critical condition. "I don't know what to do. I really don't know." Hannah began speaking involuntarily. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. "Mr. Ethan, please, give me a sign. Just a little sign. Move your hand. Open your eyes." She bent lower, still holding both children. A tear fell onto his forehead. Ethan felt its warmth clearly. It was real. Her desperation was real. "I should have come down sooner. I shouldn't have stayed in the room with the kids." Hannah's voice broke. "I heard you two arguing. You were so upset. I should have paid more attention." A nameless feeling rose in Ethan's chest. She was blaming herself for something that was never her fault. And for the first time in his life, the performance he had staged was no longer fully under his control. At last, Hannah was forced to make a decision. "Okay, Lily, Liam, Hannah is going to set you down right next to Daddy. Just for a moment, okay? Hannah needs to get the phone. I won't go far." Her voice was trembling. Even she was so afraid that she could barely feel her own heartbeat anymore. She gently lowered the two children to the floor, right beside Ethan's side. Immediately, Lily crawled toward him, her tiny hands clutching his sleeve as if seeking something to hold on to. Liam stayed behind, his face flushed red from crying, his eyes fixed on his father's motionless face. Hannah rushed to grab the phone, but when she turned back, Lily was already clinging tightly to Ethan. Liam began to hiccup in shaky, broken sobs, and Hannah collapsed right where she stood. She sank down onto the floor, the phone trembling violently in her hand. Tears burst out uncontrollably. She tried to dial the emergency number, but her hands shook so badly that she kept pressing the wrong buttons. "No, no, don't. She wiped her tears away, took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. "I have to do this. I have to do this." Lily released Ethan's sleeve and turned abruptly, reaching out to be picked up. Liam also stretched his tiny arms toward her, not toward the father lying motionless right in front of them, but toward Hannah, the only safety they knew. Ethan felt as if a cold blade had pierced straight through his chest. Hannah immediately pulled both children tightly into her arms. "It's okay. I'm here. I'm here now." She gently rocked them, swaying their small bodies with the instinct of someone who had soothed frightened children countless times before. Through her sobs, she softly began to sing, her voice wavering. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Her voice broke midway, but she forced herself to continue. "Daddy's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Lily's sobs slowly began to fade. Liam nestled his head into the hollow of her shoulder, his tiny fingers unconsciously clutching the thin silver necklace at Hannah's chest, the only necklace she had brought with her from Texas, a gift from her mother before she passed away. "You're both so strong, just like your father," Hannah whispered, unsure whether she was comforting herself or truly believed it. "He may be difficult. He may work until midnight every day, but he loves you both. Hannah is certain of that." Ethan felt as if someone had stuffed stones into his chest. Those words struck him like heavy hammer blows. She was defending him. She, the woman he had once been cold to, scolded, treated as nothing more than a temporary presence in his house, was the one who believed in him the most. Why? "It's just that Daddy isn't used to showing it." Ethan wanted to open his eyes right then. How could she see through him so clearly? Hannah continued rocking them. Lily drifted into sleep. Liam yawned, rubbing his eyes. She drew in a deep breath and looked down at Ethan. "I'm going to call an ambulance now, okay? You two be good. Daddy needs help. We'll stay here with him, I promise." She settled the children in her lap and dialed the emergency number. "Help, 911? I'm at Malibu Canyon Road, number 88. My employer fell down the stairs. He isn't responding. His heart is still beating, but he won't open his eyes. I don't know." Her voice rushed, the words sticking together in panic. "I also have 2 children here, twins, 10 months old. They're very scared." As someone spoke on the other end of the line, she nodded repeatedly, even though they couldn't see her. "Yes, I won't move him. I'll just stay here with him." She hung up. The phone slipped from her hand and fell onto the floor beside him. No longer able to pretend to stay calm, Hannah broke down in tears. Her tears fell onto Lily's hair, onto Liam's cheek, onto the white fabric of Ethan's shirt. "I should have stayed downstairs. I should have heard you going down the stairs." She shook her head, whispering as if reciting a desperate prayer. "I always tried to avoid you, not to disturb you, not to stay too close, because you didn't like anyone hovering around. And now you're lying here, and I—" In the middle of his hiccuping sobs, Liam lifted his tiny hand and touched Hannah's cheek. She froze, looked into his clear, innocent eyes, and forced herself to swallow her tears. "I'm sorry, baby. Hannah scared you. Hannah promises everything will be okay. It has to be okay." Ethan heard every word like needles piercing his skin. His chest felt as if it were being slowly crushed. He was forcing a woman who had already lost everything to relive the terror of loss again, just because of a cruel, inhuman test. Hannah looked down at him, tears streaming endlessly. "Mr. Ethan, please wake up. I know you don't like showing weakness, but right now, please, for the children, for Lily, for Liam, they need you." She stopped. Then, in a completely broken voice, I need you too." Ethan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Hannah pulled the 2 children closer against her chest, as if Ethan might disappear at any second. "These 2 children, they are everything to me. And if anything happens to you—" She couldn't go on. Her tears finished the sentence for her. In that moment, the entire armor of steel that Ethan Cole had built around himself over 40 years began to crack. She shifted position, leaned her back against the nearby wall, settled Lily and Liam in her lap, facing Ethan's motionless face. "Lily, look at Daddy." She took the little girl's hand and gently placed it against his cold fingers. "Daddy is just sleeping. Daddy works too hard." Her voice suddenly grew warmer, softer, as if she were telling a bedtime story, not sitting on a freezing marble floor thick with fear and dread. "Liam, do you know how smart your daddy is? He built an entire company, gave jobs to so many people. Everyone here works because of him, and because of you two." Ethan fell silent. She was protecting him in front of the very children whose every moment he had missed. "Your daddy. He just forgot how to show it," Hannah whispered, as if speaking even to the wall itself. "When people grow up without many hugs, without many words of love, they learn how to make money very well, but they never learn how to love properly." Lily let out a long yawn. Liam rubbed his eyes, exhausted after the long bout of crying. Hannah kissed each of them on the forehead and held them tighter against her chest. "Hannah grew up in a small house in Houston. My dad was a delivery driver, my mom a waitress. We never had enough money, but every night my father would kiss my forehead and say, 'My Hannah, Daddy loves you. Tomorrow Daddy will come home to you.'" Her voice cracked in the middle of the sentence. "They never came home after an accident on Interstate 10. Hannah was 22 years old and lost everything. Lost the house, lost the car, lost everything. But Hannah still had the hugs, still had those words, 'Daddy loves you.' They are what kept Hannah alive." She glanced at Ethan, her eyes red and swollen. "Mr. Cole, You have 2 healthy children, beautiful as angels, right here. But if you die today—" Her words caught for a second, then she continued in a hoarse voice. "What will they remember about you? The office door that was always closed? The blue light of a screen in the night? The sound of the shower running after business trips?" Ethan wanted to scream, "Enough!" But he couldn't. He lay there, bound tightly to the truth of his own life. Hannah's father never had money to buy a big house, never had stocks, never had a beachside mansion. Hannah let out a faint laugh, empty of all joy. "But if I could trade all of these buildings just to hear, 'Daddy loves you,' one more time, I would trade them without hesitation." She pressed her cheek into Lily's hair, her eyes staring blankly into the distance. "Mr. Cole has everything, but you are letting the most important things slip right past you." The sound of the ambulance siren was now right at the gate, red and blue lights flashing through the glass windows. Hannah sniffed, wiped her tears with the back of her hand, then stood up, holding both children tightly as she moved toward the door. "You will be given another chance, Mr. Cole," she turned back and said, her voice trembling but unshakably firm. "Please, don't waste it this time." The front door burst open. 2 paramedics in reflective jackets rushed in, carrying a folding stretcher. "He fell from the stairs, right? Did he hit his head hard?" Hannah nodded rapidly, still struggling to explain, her English tangled with her breath. I heard the fall. I ran down. He was lying like this. Since then, his heart is still beating, but—" "You did very well, ma'am. We'll take him to Cedars-Sinai for examination." One of them turned to her. "Are you his wife?" Hannah hesitated for a second. Lily startled and clutched tightly at her shirt. "No, I'm the nanny." "Is there anyone else in the house? Family? Relatives?" "No, his ex-wife is in New York. He has no one else here." That answer hit Ethan harder than the fall itself. No one else here. In a house of over 8,000 square feet, with a swimming pool, a private dock, a gym, a mini-theater. He had no one. "Then it's best if you stay here with the children. We'll update you after the examination." "No." Hannah's voice cut in, so firm it startled even herself. "I have to go with him. Please let me take Lily and Liam with me. I'll take care of them at the hospital. She looked down at the 2 children asleep on her shoulder, then at Ethan on the stretcher, his face pale, yet still the man who had signed her contract 7 months ago, the man who had unknowingly given her a place to set down the only suitcase she owned in this life. "I can't let him go alone." The paramedics exchanged a glance, then nodded. "All right, but you'll have to sit in the back with them. Buckle your seatbelt." They lifted Ethan onto the stretcher. Each slight jolt as the wheels rolled across the floor sent pain flaring through his chest, but it hurt far less than the words he had just heard. He heard Hannah's shoes running close beside him, heard Lily yawn once more, heard Liam's soft, exhausted wheezing. "Please take good care of him," Hannah said quietly to the paramedics. "He matters to many people. To these 2, and to—" she hesitated. "To me." The rear doors of the ambulance slammed shut. The siren wailed once more. Inside the cramped space of the ambulance, every sound suddenly grew sharper. The soft beeping of the monitor, the wheels humming over the asphalt, the wind shrieking through the narrow gaps. Hannah sat on the bench above Ethan's head, her back against the wall, the 2 children lying across her body, her arms wrapped around them both. A large patch of her blouse was soaked with sweat and tears. Ethan felt the ambulance shake more as it entered the highway. And then, for the first time since the fall, he allowed himself to do something harder than any billion-dollar deal he had ever made. He opened his eyes. The white lights on the ceiling of the ambulance blinded him, forcing him to blink several times. The first image that came into focus was Hannah's face. Exhausted, eyes swollen red, her hastily tied hair falling loose, a few strands clinging to her cheek where dried tears still lingered. She was staring out the small rear window, her gaze distant, as if her soul were still trapped somewhere on a smoky Texas highway filled with the screech of brakes from long ago. "When someone loses everything all at once," she whispered, unaware that he was awake. "They spend the rest of their life just trying to hold on to what remains. I swore I would never lose another family again." "Hannah!" His hoarse voice cut through her thoughts. Both she and the paramedic startled. The medic bent down over him. "Can you hear me, Mr. Cole? Do you know where you are?" "An ambulance," Ethan replied, his eyes never leaving Hannah. She looked at him in shock, then her expression shifted to disbelief, relief, and finally, betrayal. "Mr. Cole, how long have you been awake?" "No?" He shook his head faintly, feeling pain ripple along his neck. "I just opened my eyes." He swallowed hard, his throat burning dry. "But I heard everything." Hannah's face went pale. Her lips parted and closed again, as if she could not find a single word. Her hand tightened instinctively against the back of Liam's shirt. "You know, what you think of me," Ethan continued, struggling to keep his voice from breaking. "A selfish man who only knows how to shut his office door, using money to compensate for what he never dared to give with his heart." I didn't—" "You were right." He interrupted her gently, without any of the sharp authority that usually ruled his boardroom meetings. "I lay there not because I was unconscious, but because I wanted to see who would truly panic when I disappeared." A hot tear slid down his neck. He realized it was not Hannah's. This time it was his own. "I was cruel enough to use the fear of loss of someone who had already lost everything, just to satisfy my own twisted curiosity." The paramedic glanced at Hannah, then pretended to busy himself with the monitor, granting them a few moments of privacy inside the tiny ambulance. "I heard you talk about your parents," Ethan whispered. "About the house in Houston. About the last time you heard Daddy loves you. I heard you say, these two children are your family. I heard you cry, because you were afraid you would lose yet another family if I didn't wake up." Hannah looked down at Lily and Liam, sleeping peacefully in her arms, their tiny eyelashes still damp. "I don't deserve those tears," Ethan said, each word pulled from deep within his chest. "I don't deserve to be defended by you in front of my own children. I don't deserve to be called father if all they remember of me is my back, walking away every single night." Hannah remained silent. The monitor beeped steadily. The ambulance siren echoed against the concrete walls of the tunnel outside. "But Ethan suddenly felt his voice tremble. "I have never begged for anything in my life except business deals. I have never bowed my head to anyone. But now, I am begging you." He lifted his hand slowly, as if afraid one sudden movement might shatter his entire body. His hand stopped in midair, not touching her, yet making the distance between them suddenly tangible. "Hannah, give me a second chance. Not a chance to live longer, but a chance to live correctly, to learn how to be a father, to learn how to look at these two children and see not just responsibility, but a miracle." Hannah swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears again. "I can't learn that on my own, my whole life. No one ever taught me. My father never hugged me. My mother never said, 'I'm proud of you.' I built a company, but I never built a single warm memory for my children." He drew a deep breath, feeling the pain beneath his ribs flare again, but he continued. "You did that in my place. You kept Lily's first steps in your heart. You remembered Liam's first babbled words. You stayed awake through nights of fever. You sang the songs your mother once sang to you. You gave them the memories I was supposed to create." He looked straight into her eyes. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it yet. I'm only asking you. If you still believe, even a little, that I can change, then teach me. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The ambulance swayed gently as it turned into the hospital entrance. In that moment, Ethan felt like a 10-year-old boy standing outside a yard, peering through a kitchen window, wishing that someone would come back and hold him. Hannah took a deep breath. She looked at him, looked at the 2 children, then looked back at him. Finally, her voice spoke softly but clearly. "Okay." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "I will give you 1 chance," Hannah continued. She looked down at Lily and Liam. "If we truly begin again, then we will begin as human beings. Not as employer and employee, not as a wallet and a paycheck, but as—" She hesitated, as if afraid the word itself might shatter something still fragile. A family. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Such a simple word, yet one he had never truly understood. The doors of the ambulance burst open. The harsh white light of the emergency room poured in. The paramedics stepped closer, unfastened the seat belts, and prepared to wheel the stretcher out. Hannah tightened her hold on Lily and Liam and whispered into their ears, "Daddy is going to be okay, and from today on, everything will be different." For the first time in many years, Ethan did not think about stock prices, did not think about quarterly reports, did not think about his arguments with Olivia. He thought about this very moment, about the small Asian woman holding tightly the 2 children he had created but hardly knew, about her teary yet determined eyes. He thought that perhaps he had just been born for the 2nd time, right there on that stretcher, and deep in his chest, beneath the aching ribs, something began to stir, slow, clumsy, but undeniable, like a heart, learning how to love again from the very beginning. Ethan was taken straight to the intensive care unit. The cold white lights washed over his face, the steady beeping of the monitor marking the fragile rhythm of life. Day later, when he finally woke fully, the first thing he saw was not the hospital ceiling, not the IV lines, but Hannah. She was sitting asleep beside his bed, her back against the chair, both arms still wrapped tightly around Lily and Liam. The 2 children were nestled against her, sleeping so deeply that their steady breathing made her blouse rise and fall with each rhythm. One of Liam's cheeks rested against her chest, his tiny hand still clutching the old silver necklace. Lily lay with her head on Hannah's arm, her soft hair spilling down like a thin strand of sunlight. Ethan watched the scene for a long time. For the first time in his life, he did not feel alone in a room filled with medical machines. For the first time, family was no longer a distant concept, but something standing right before his eyes. He moved slightly. Hannah startled awake. When their eyes met, she said nothing. She only smiled, her eyes still wet. And Ethan knew he had truly come home. The day they were discharged, Ethan was no longer the man of tightly closed office doors. He carried Lily in his own arms, while Hannah held Liam. The 3 of them walked side by side, slowly, as if afraid that if they moved too fast, the moment might disappear. Back at home, everything gradually changed. Dinners were no longer just Hannah and the 2 children. Ethan began coming home earlier. Some evenings he sat on the floor building blocks with Lily, clumsily reading comic books to Liam in his deep, slow voice. Some nights he stayed awake with Hannah when the children had fevers, changing cold towels with his own hands, even as his hands trembled and his eyes burned red from exhaustion. He was learning how to be a father, little by little, slowly, but sincerely. 2 years passed, quietly, without drama. Their love was no longer built on the promise whispered inside an ambulance that night, but on mornings they woke up beside each other, on shared meals filled with soft laughter, on silent embraces after exhausting days, on small arguments that ended in forgiveness. It grew in Ethan's eyes every time he stood still and watched Hannah carry Lily and Liam into sleep. That look was no longer one of gratitude from a man who had been saved, but the tenderness of a man who had finally learned how to love. One evening at sunset on the shore of Malibu, as the sun brushed the ocean and turned the sky into warm shades of gold, Ethan knelt in front of Hannah. There was no spotlight, no rehearsed speech, only a small ring trembling in his hand, and a single sentence spoken from the depths of his heart. "Will you live with me the life I once lost?" Hannah burst into tears and nodded. 1 year later, Jasmine came into their lives like a quiet gift from fate. She had Ethan's eyes and Hannah's gentle smile. In a room flooded with sunlight, Ethan held his youngest daughter in his arms, awkward yet tender, while Lily and Liam stood on either side, curiously touching her tiny fingers, as if touching a miracle just born. Hannah stood behind them, watching her 3 little ones. Tears rolled down her cheeks, no longer from fear, but from pure happiness. And the final picture closed there. A peaceful afternoon. 5 people sitting by the front porch. Lily slowly reading a book to her little sister. Liam laughing as he played with the small dog on the grass. Jasmine sleeping soundly in Hannah's arms. Ethan standing behind his wife, one hand resting on her shoulder, the other shading the children from the sun, as if sheltering their entire sky. No longer a billionaire, no longer a boss, no longer a man of closed doors. Only a father, a husband, and a family, 5 souls, living together in quiet, complete happiness.